First-person shooters are always really interesting to cover on this channel. I've talked about games like Battlefield and Call of Duty before in the past, but I've never talked about Borderlands. Now, I did make a video talking about how the game was doing a lot of right back when they first announced it to keep me interested, and luckily enough, they did keep me interested all the way until its released back in September. Now that I've played Borderlands 4 for a little bit now, I've beaten the main story in terms of just like my first playthrough, I'm going to give some thoughts on it. Now, I don't like calling these types of videos full reviews because I haven't done everything in the game and it's still being supported with post-launch content. So think of this as like a work in progress review. But honestly, I've really enjoyed a lot of what Borderlands 4 has to offer. Now, to get things out of the way first and foremost, even though this video is my opinion and I respect yours, please be civil in the comment section down below. This game seems to be very, very pulverizing for a lot of different reasons. And the first thing, we have to talk about it. The state the game was in when it launched was absolutely terrible for PC. I can't talk about consoles. I haven't seen too much talking about how the performance was on consoles, but this game was basically not working for a lot of people when it launched. A lot of people talked about how the game would constantly crash. It had multiple download and install patches. It would relaunch itself to install shaders, then you had to restart it. It would install them again, and then the settings would reset every time you tried to load into the game, and then it would crash again. So it just seemed like there was a lot of discourse around it. Now, I didn't start playing Borderlands 4 until about a week after it came out, so I'm not sure if things were hot fixed or anything like that. I still, though, have really not seen any issues. From my own personal experience, the biggest thing that I've seen was some FPS drops in the final boss fight of the game, and some FPS drops when there was a lot of flying enemies. But outside of that, I personally have not experienced any major problems like crashes. Now, I will say a more annoying issue that I've run into recently was with trying to play this game with friends, just randomly getting booted offline and then not being able to reconnect unless I fully restarted the game, which with a game like this that has a opening screen that takes about 45 seconds to 2 minutes, it can be very frustrating if you're on a time crunch like I normally am. And that's got to be probably the biggest complaint, is just the opening portion of this game. Literally just trying to get it to open can be so goddamn frustrating and so loud for no reason. I don't know why games have been doing this recently for PC. It feels like when you open the game, it is so astronomically, like, sound bleedingly loud for no reason. Okay, now that I'm done talking about the fucking opening screen of the game, let's talk about the actual game here. Now, it's funny because a lot of people, it seems, who have been long-term Borderlands fans, as in they've played every single installment in the franchise, have not really enjoyed the game all that much. And I'm not sure why. A lot of people say that the switch to open world has been generally boring, the story was not that fun, the humor wasn't there, and a lot of the loot was very samey. That seems to be like a pretty quick overview of how older fans of the franchise are feeling. Again, if you're someone who played all the Borderlands games and you actually like this game, or you don't like this game, let me know why. But as someone who played probably more Borderlands 2 than most other games, and then nothing else in the franchise, I've really enjoyed the game. I think the core gameplay with the guns is what has made it so entertaining for me. The gunplay here and the variety of different weapons you can have is just so cool. And I actually think that the open world helps with that, because even though personally I get pretty bored of the enemy types in this game, I feel like the enemy types just are not enough for how big of an open world we have. I think that there's enough collectibles in terms of just variety of guns that you can get in this game to try and play it differently every single time. Not to mention the Vault Hunters themselves also have so many different branching paths. Each one starts with, I believe, 3, and then each of those 3 branches outward for a lot of skill points. So they really tried to make it so you can replay this game in a ton of different ways, and I like that. I think that's better for games like this to do than anything else, because it just creates more replayability and keeps it a little fresh. Now, the downside to that, though, like I said, is that you have to have an open world that is entertaining enough to solicit multiple playthroughs, and I just don't know if I feel that way yet. Now, personally, I think that the humor in this game was perfectly okay. I didn't think it was better than Borderlands 2, but from what I've seen from Borderlands 3 and prequel, it could be to par, if not at least better than 3. And I've also seen that the story, a lot of people are saying the story, like the people that enjoyed this game, the story is better than Borderlands 3. And I know for sure that a lot of people hated that story. But yeah, I just love the core gameplay here. It's really well made, in my opinion. All of the guns feel super responsive. Even when you are playing different Vault Hunters, all of their abilities just feel good to use. And yes, later in the game, you can get weapons that literally 4 or 5 shot the final boss of the game. But if you're not really sure of how to approach this game, don't just run and gun it, because you might die a lot. And that happened to me at the very start. But I also really liked farming specific bosses in this game. They make it really easy in terms of just respawning the boss and going at it over and over again. They have these, I think it's Mad Moxie is what they're called. They're like little cutouts that are right in front of boss arenas where you can pay to have the boss respawn. And then after you beat the boss and collect the loot, whether it's just from drops from the actual boss or chest after, there's a portal that brings you right back to that cutout area in front of the boss arena. For a game like this where you really do have to grind at times, it makes it so much more fluid and really fun. Now, again, that's all my personal feelings, though. I think the actual gunplay is by far the best part about this game. I definitely think that this game will get better over time, right? This is one of those games where once they continuously add updates and different content to it, it will get better. However, that makes it kind of hard for me to recommend because this is not a cheap game. Right, the base game by itself is $70. The deluxe edition is $100, and then the super deluxe edition is $130. I mean, that is a lot of money for a game that a lot of people might just not sink that much time into. Again, for me, this game works really well because I'm someone who really enjoys having a game in the background that I can just kind of go in, grind out some missions, some bosses, etc., some side missions while I'm just like watching YouTube or something. But if you're deciding, right, between this game and a game like Ghost of Yote, or even a game like Silksong, or what else released around here, maybe even that Chronos game that a lot of people really liked, it would be hard for me to recommend this if you are a solo player. Borderlands for me has always been about how smooth and how seamless the co-op can be. And that's probably my favorite thing about this game. Now, I know I said at the beginning that the gunplay was my favorite thing and that I was having problems with the internet connection and different things. And I know that I'm also a hypocrite, so I apologize. But once it's working, the co-op is so smooth, right? I can hop into my best buddy's world where he's beating the game and he's level like 55 or whatever and level up my Vault Hunter. And then when we go back into my world, I keep all the levels and all of the guns and all of my skill point upgrades. I love that. I think the biggest thing is just creating a second character behind reaching level 50 seems a little excessive to me. But in general, I think the co-op works really well once it gets going, and I'm glad for that. But I can see why some people might wait for this game to be on sale, and honestly, I think that's a pretty good piece of advice. Now, unless you and your buddies have been waiting for this game forever, or you're like me and played a shit ton of Borderlands 2 with one really good close friend, and that really close friend is really excited for the game, and you're like, fuck it, I'm gonna give it a try, then you're gonna be pleasantly surprised here. Now, I haven't touched on certain comments that have been made from certain people behind this game, and that's because I just don't really want to get into it, to be honest. Obviously, this game had a ton of drama surrounding it coming up, and I'm just someone who, when I play a game, I try to ignore external factors around it just because I'm really trying to critique the game for the game itself. So for me, this game is probably like a 7.5 out of 10 if I had to give it a number. It's really good. Just there are some things that when tweaked or when added to, could make this game phenomenal. But that's my thoughts on Borderlands 4 and if it stuck the landing or not. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I would love to hear how everybody's feeling about this game if you've gotten the chance to give it a try. I'd also like to know if you've had some like really crazy bugs or crashes or issues. I know I was looking through some Steam reviews before I started, and I think some dude said he's been trying to get the game to open for like 2 weeks and it just doesn't start. But yeah, I'm excited to hear what everybody says. Check out my other videos. Links will be on the screen at the end. This has been Nate, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.